Want to welcome our panel here from Parkville, Maryland. Thaddeus Polhemus. Say hello, Thad.
Hello, Thad.
And from Wake Forest, North Carolina, Mike. Hello.
Yeah, but don't mention the country.
And two of our panelists are from Palmer, Alaska, Judy Donegan.
Hello.
And Michelle Church.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the Trump presidency. You all know I like to come up with my own definitions. This one came from observing groups and their hierarchical structure. A group is totalitarian in nature when the sole mission of the group is maintaining the alpha status of the top dog in the group. Examples I cite to support this definition are groups such as Hitler's Germany, Stalin's Soviet Union, Saddam's Iraq, or Kim's North Korea, where everyone's mission was to support the grip Hitler, Stalin, Saddam, and Kim had on their power. I am not claiming that America is totalitarian under Trump, because there are powerful forces in opposition to his alpha status. The Trump administration is, however, completely totalitarian because everyone working there is primarily dedicated to keeping the Donald in power, or they are gone. Xi has already changed China's constitution, so he is the alpha for life. Putin is about to do the same thing in Russia. In societies governed by authoritarians such as Hitler, Stalin, Saddam, Kim, Xi, and Putin, there is clearly a fear among some citizens of government oppression, which stifles free expression. But there are others in society who have a fanatical love of their leader's strength and patriotism. Do you believe that a second Trump term will take us to the kind of societies I described above? And if not, what kind of America do you see with another 4 years of Trump as president?
I have a feeling that without 4 more years of Trump as president, we have a chance, not a certainty, but a chance of recovering from the damage that's been done so far. Another 4 years of a Trump presidency, well, let me just say that I am afraid that after November 3rd of this year, there is going to be violence in this country. Whether Mr. Trump gets his second term or if Biden unseats him, one way or the other, there's going to be a significant number of people who are sufficiently irate to take up arms against their fellow Americans. I have a feeling that it would be worse for us all if Trump were still president, because he would be encouraging that violence.
Do you see violence, Mike?
As Hillary Clinton said, November is going to be a very problematic month for the entire Western Hemisphere, and particularly our democracy.
Judy, how do you feel about 4 more years of the presidency?
It's really awful to think of 4 more years. But I do agree that the problem will probably hit sooner than 4 years. I don't like to think of the kind of scenes that Thad is describing, but there's probably a good deal of truth in that. And, you know, if that didn't happen, if he continued, one would hope that the Supreme Court and the Congress would finally man up and do something. But if they did, then we would have another incitement to violence. So it's a pretty
What do
scary
you mean
proposition.
by Supreme Court manning up? Well, I'm not sure what you're saying there.
Well, they might, there will be cases that will attempt to rein him in, I would think. And they may actually do it. And Congress, it's just so hard to believe that people elected to Congress don't have the courage to take him on. So far they haven't, but maybe this would be a different Congress. So that's kind of the hopeful view of things, which I almost don't expect to happen. But I like to keep a hopeful view somewhere.
Michelle, how do you see another 4 years of Trump?
Oh, I think it will be an utter disaster for America, and especially for America on the world stage. I agree. I think that we are looking at a potential civil war, and I think that Trump would love that, because what an ego stroke that would be in his horrific view, that it's all about him, even though it isn't. He's just really a horrible reflection of everything that's wrong in our country. But I think that on a world stage, we're going to be in a world of hurt, and as far as future generations being able to unbury themselves from the massive debt that he's going to bring on, and the massive degradation of the environment that his policies will bring. I don't think Trump wants to win. I think that he's hoping that he doesn't win, and that he'll be able to go off on his talk show tangent, which is where that's his sweet spot. Being president is a lot of work. I mean, he's certainly not doing a lot of work, but in his view, it's a lot of work, because he's having to, put up with all the criticism, that to him is a horrible thing. So I think he would be completely fine with not winning, and then just sort of trying to take the country down, just to satisfy his own ego. So,
But if he doesn't win, doesn't he go to jail? I mean, the crimes he committed.
Hopefully. I don't know. Will he, or will he just be able to continue to play the game? I mean, he benefits so much from people having sort of this historical contextual behavior of not being him, and sitting back and hoping that that other people and the rest of the country will realize what he is and what he's doing, that somebody will finally step in. But everybody's they're just shell-shocked and silent at his behavior and what he's doing, and Congress isn't calling him on it. The courts really, I mean, kind of, but not really. So I don't know.
Trump re-election campaign appears to have one issue since the Hunter Biden strategy lost all its traction. That issue is the culture war, us against them. It seemed to work out well for him in 2016 in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Is there anything different now, or does this continue to be a winning campaign strategy? The culture war. That's all he's running on, it seems. Is it working in 2020, Michelle?
I don't know. I look at the 538 polls every day, and I'm always shocked that his disapproval rating isn't just skyrocketing; it's actually going down. So people are either they're just not answering the polls, and I don't know how his disapproval rating isn't going up. There was an article in the paper. There was an issue down in Kenai, something. It was, I don't even remember what it was. Judy might know. But they said that it was all about keeping the base enraged in order to keep them engaged. And I thought, that's it right there. Keep people so enraged that they will, carry out whatever, you tell them to do, whether it's to vote or to incite violence or whatever. So I think that's what he's doing. And he's successful at that. But I do think that maybe there are some more intelligent folks, as evidenced by the Lincoln group that's putting those ads together, that are saying, no, he's so far over the top. We have to rein this in. So I don't know.
Thaddeus?
Well, I think that he is on a little bit more shaky ground because over the course of the last 3.5 or so years, he has managed to alienate a lot of the people who voted for him. And you get, whole bunches of people who are just saying, well, I voted for him the last time and I'm regretting it and I wouldn't vote for him again. Most of them, or the largest number of them, seem to be women voters who have seen that he doesn't treat women very well, either personally or politically. But I think one thing that is kind of shooting him in the foot right now is the COVID-19 crisis. More people have gotten wind of the fact that he has done an extremely ineffective job of fighting this pandemic. And it's obviously shot a big hole in the economy. And the economy has been what he was hoping to slide into his second term on. And, with millions of people out of jobs, unless he can find a magical way to turn that around in the next 5 months, he's going to have a tough time winning, unless his friends in Russia falsify a couple 100 million ballots.
Judy, what do you think?
Well, I don't check the polls all the time, but my impression is that he is hanging on to his so-called base, but it doesn't even seem like he's trying to win over anyone else. So maybe Michelle is right that he doesn't even really want to win. And I think he is losing support, as Thad says, among women. Suburban women, they say, are turning against him. And the Lincoln Project is interesting, but that's a kind of elite group of people, probably not that many voters. So I don't think his tactics are working to enlarge his vote. I think he's hanging on to what he had.
Michelle?
Well, I would say also the problem is, the problem is the utter lack of personal ethics and morality that Trump embodies, first of all, because he's not ashamed to have everybody find out that he's lying, and that doesn't bother him at all. And, the whole disinformation, misinformation campaigns or whatever, everything is based on this much truth. And so people are like, well, I know that much is true, so I'm just going to be lazy and go, oh, well, the rest of it must be true, because there's always just a tiny little grain of truth in the midst of all these lies that allows Trump and his minions to pivot on them. It doesn't take much, I don't think, critical thought to be able to, determine that what they're saying is a total lie. But there's enough people that are exhausted by the constant, noise out there, that it's just easier for them, again, to just crawl into the camp that they want to be in and put up their sandbags and call it a siege.
The latest symbol to emerge in the ideological culture war is a simple public health consideration. wearing a mask in public to reduce the spread of COVID-19. How much responsibility does Trump bear for America's immersion in the masks war? Thaddeus.
Well, in the last couple of weeks, there have been two people who have hit the news who are quoted a little bit later as having said, well, you know, my president says that this is all a big hoax and, you know, I'm not going to be a wuss and put that mask on. And then a little postscript under the still picture of the person who was saying that as, and so passed away at the age of 37 or 27 or whatever it is. So that has not played very well in the, at least in the left-wing news. So it's kind of a bust. Now,
So do you attribute that, Thaddeus, do you attribute that to Trump's responsibility or to the stupidity of the person who believed Trump?
Well, you got to have both. And after all, Mr. Trump has said, I quote, I take no responsibility. So if he takes no responsibility, I guess he's not the president. He did show up, as we all saw on the news this weekend, wearing a mask, finally. And I think that can be chalked up to too little, too late. It might have been helpful if he was wearing a mask in February.
Mike, what do you think about Trump's responsibility for this mask war?
I think I made it clear. I blame the parents.
Parents are responsible. Michelle?
Oh, I think it lands squarely at his feet because, and you know, while certainly people need to be able to make determinations for themselves, he's the one who is, you know, throwing it out there and making it political. And it's he's the one who has made wearing a mask or not wearing a mask indicative of how you're going to vote in his election. And so the people, his base, that is very strongly his base, and nothing will change that. They're the people that are refusing to wear the masks, which is what is really keeping this whole virus thing alive and well in the communities. So yeah, people are responsible for themselves. But if Trump had come out of the gate saying, oh my God, we have to wear these masks, I have Trump for American masks, sign on here, buy them here, people would have done that. They would have worn the masks.
Judy?
I agree with Michelle. He could have said something to make it all different. And any president who had the good of the country at heart would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't.
It is becoming increasingly clear to me that the Civil War did not end in 1865 at Appomattox Courthouse. Lee's army surrendered, but other forces continued to fight. The murder of George Floyd seemed to wake up much of America to the fact that the Civil War continues. President Trump's passionate support of the Confederacy in his defense of the statues and military installations honoring the leaders of the rebellion has given some pundits the stated belief that Jefferson Davis's successor is the current occupant of the Oval Office. George Floyd's murder has already motivated some changes and reforms, but the forces that today represent the legacy of the Confederacy are by no means defeated. Do you think this movement has the capability of crushing the rebellion in the way Abraham Lincoln hoped for while he was still president? Thaddeus, what about Lincoln's view of stopping the rebellion by crushing the Confederacy and what happened subsequent to that?
Well, for 150 years after Appomattox, the Civil War has raged on, and I agree with that. in the last few weeks, we have seen some things that I never thought would happen. And that is, statues of Robert E. Lee coming down in the South, ringing down the state flag of Mississippi so that it can be redesigned without the stars and bars as its quartermast. I don't know. We aren't at the end of this. We're at what could be the beginning of something that is going to be going on for several years to come. But right now, at this moment, it looks like there's been a positive outcome from that horrible murder. That people finally woke up to the fact that the Civil War is still on, and the South is still trying to rise again. I have hopes, and thank you for making this the last question of the night. I have hopes that something good can come of this. Now, you're right about the occupant of the White House. He does seem to be very much in the pocket of the Confederacy. But what's happening, what's coming out, all of these demonstrations, and they are, for the most part, peaceful demonstrations, and the people who are committing the violence turn out to be white people from other communities. So it's a grassroots movement. And I have high hopes that the people, the people at the street level are coming together to make a positive change and finally lay the 400 years of slavery and racism to rest. We may not see the final outcome in our lifetime. We're all a little old. But maybe the next generation is going to be a fairer country, a fairer society.
Judy, you have hopes like that?
I would like to, but I think I'm a little bit afraid that I think that intelligent, sensible people who have the good of the country at heart will probably have changes made, and like the Mississippi flag, that was great. But I'm afraid that a lot of this is going to inspire a backlash by the white supremacists and the Confederacy types. So I think we're going to go back and forth, maybe one step forward, one step back, before we get to any real resolution of the issue.
Mike, do you think we're going to be able to achieve a resolution?
I hope that 100 years from now, historians will look back and see the Trump administration as the catalyst that pulled back the blanket of the absolute absurd elementary, ideological fake image that Americans have had of this country. We are imperialists, we're racist, we're genocidal, we're where we are today because of all the things we are aghast at the rest of the world doing. And maybe it's time for us to wake up and say, holy hell, that's who we are, but let's move forward. And I do think this is a positive moment in our history because we're becoming adults in our legacy and in our history.
Michelle, as Mike said, that it could be that the Trump administration and its horrors have woken us up to the history of the Confederacy still being an active force. What kind of hope do you have for the future?
Well, I do have hope, because there are so many. If you look at the crowds that were demonstrating, they are young, and again, there has to be this collective desire of everyone in the country. Everybody sort of has to get in the same boat, and unfortunately, all of those young people are going to be in the same boat economically because the jobs are not there unless we change course and we start building things here and manufacturing things here and creating an economy like what we saw post World War II, which allowed our parents to leapfrog above how they grew up in their economy. So I think that there's going to be a lot of young people that are like, we really are getting the short end of the stick here, not even and using the racial divide, being able to see each other more as human beings than as everybody in their own racial whatever. So I am hopeful. I'm a little bit, I try to think about all the people watching Fox News right now. A lot of them were also at Woodstock, and so I don't really know what happened to the idealism that they seem to have in their youth. So I hope that doesn't happen, but I am hopeful because I know that, my son is just turning 30 and his friends are very diverse. He has a very diverse group of friends. And so I think that they see the world a little bit differently, and they're going to see the inequities, and they're also going to, I hope, see that if they pull together collectively, it's going to be better for everybody. So I guess.
And I want to thank Mike, Thaddeus, Judy, Michelle for joining us today.